Namaste. There is no greatness without some touch of madness. So, madness is also necessary. However, to what purpose this madness is applied is what decides the course of your destiny. So, madness is necessary. Being mad is not bad. However, as I said, what is the intention, what is the purpose is what matters. If you are going out of the way to help someone and the world may call you mad, it is perfectly fine. However, if you are going out of the way to harm somebody and the world calls you mad, then it is a problem. So the purpose, the intention is what decides whether this madness is beautiful or ugly. Retrograde Mercury brings this kind of madness. However, whether it is good or bad is totally based on the overall quality of your horoscope. In this podcast, I have shared certain insights on retrograde Mercury. So let's begin. Always thinking differently. That is the very essence of retrograde Mercury. However, whether this different thought pattern is positive or negative depends solely on the house placement and overall state of Mercury Maharaj. If the placement of Mercury Maharaj is positive, then the native turns out to be a genius. His out of the box thinking leads to many new inventions and discoveries. One fine example of retrograde Mercury is Steve Jobs, the man who invented Apple computers, iPhones, and iPads. However, it is also necessary to remember that he was forced to leave the company. It is said that the primary reason was his differences with the company management. Differences of opinion is one major outcome of retrograde Mercury person. He feels as if nobody can understand his point of view, and so then either he has to leave or he is forced to leave. During the 2016 US presidential elections, Donald Trump called Hillary Clinton Crooked Hillary. Interestingly, Hillary Clinton has a retrograde Mercury and she was tried for the infamous email controversy. During her tenure as United States Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton drew controversy by using a private email server for official public communications. It seems that a retrograde Mercury is placed in the second house of her birth chart. Corruption charges were levied against the Clinton Foundation. So many such scandalous clouds surround when Mercury is retrograde in your birth chart. If she would have become the US president, then there was a possibility that she would have made many wrong decisions. Retrograde Mercury compels you to make wrong decisions, or you simply end up making no decision. Either way, life suffers because of being indecisive, a major outcome of retrograde Mercury. Retrograde Mercury can do something unusual in your life. Julia Roberts, even though by birth is a Christian, she started following the great spiritual master Neem Karoli Baba and eventually took to the Hindu faith. She changed the names of her 3 children by giving them Hindu names: Lakshmi for Hazel, Ganesh for Phineas, and Krishna Balaram for Henry. So, such drastic change in outlook towards life can happen with a positive retrograde Mercury. However, if the placement of Mercury is not good and the overall chart belongs to a base level person, a person who abuses others through his or her negative comments, a person who goes on hurting others by his or her cheap, shallow talk, or a person who simply loves to harm others by indulging in the dirty act of black magic, then such a person with retrograde Mercury causes much harm to the society. He may even become a terrorist, or he may just become a nuisance to the society in general. It all depends on the overall quality of the birth chart. There are many idiotic men and women on this forum who continue to hurt others by posting negative comments. And by doing this, they create a new cycle of bad karma for themselves. Such natives suffer a lot in life. They die in utter disappointments. And many of such kind of cheap, shallow and so-called intellectual natives have an afflicted Mercury or a retrograde Mercury in a very, very bad state. One should stay away from such natives as they are dangerous and can cause much harm and pain to you. Always remember, money is not the criteria to judge a person's level of understanding. I have met almost many men and women who have tons and tons of money in their bank accounts. And yet if you ask me, they are the most idiotic people I have ever met. Of course, when I meet them, I smile. But within, I pity them for their utter ignorant life. Retrograde Mercury, good or bad, the native is difficult to deal with. Because even though his or her intentions are good, they just can't think and respond in a normal way. In our Indian television, there was an advertisement for the snack called Kurkure. Their punchline was, "Tedha hai, par mera hai." It means he is crooked, but still he is my. So is the case with retrograde Mercury. In negative scenarios, these natives are very shrewd and also crooked, and so in politics or in board games, they do extremely well. Retrograde Mercury in a birth chart with ascendant Gemini, Libra or Aquarius is a highly intellectual person, does well in IT industry or in news media. Often these natives are perceived as mad because they can do the unimaginable. Do you remember the scene from the movie Bajrangi Bhaijaan? The hero is determined to enter Pakistan by crossing the Indian borders, and that too without a Pakistani visa. And when the Pakistani soldiers stop him and ask him to return back to Indian territory, he denies and innocently tells the Pakistani soldiers that he has crossed the borders just so that he can help the little Pakistani girl find her lost parents based in Pakistan. Listening to this, the Pakistani soldiers make fun of him and say that he is not mad but full mad. This is how retrograde Mercury is, full mad. But even this full madness is adorable when the intention behind this madness is good. And so the Pakistani soldiers let him have his way. Actually, when I watched the Pakistani soldiers saying, "Ye to pura pagal hai," he is full mad, I had a good laugh. It was such a beautiful scene depicting the innocence of a man who is determined to help the lost Pakistani girl find her parents. I laughed as well as my eyes became wet. Beautiful scene. And so madness is not bad. Madness is good as long as it serves a good purpose. And retrograde Mercury is also good as long as it serves a good purpose. Remember, there is no greatness without some touch of madness. It reminds me of a beautiful story. The story of one such a madman, and his name was Mojud. He lived in a town where he had obtained a post as a small official, and it seemed likely that he would end his days as inspector of weights and measures. One day he was walking through the gardens of an ancient building near his home. Khidra, the mysterious guide of the Sufis, appeared before him, dressed in shimmering green. Khidra said, "Man of bright prospects, leave your work and meet me at the riverside in 3 days." Then he disappeared. Mojud went to his superior and said that he had to leave. Everyone in the town soon heard of this, and they said, "Poor Mojud, he has gone mad." But as there were many candidates for his job, they soon forgot him. On the appointed day, Mojud met Khidr, who said to him, "Tear your clothes and throw yourself into the stream. Perhaps someone will save you." Mojud did so, even though he wondered if he were mad. Since he could swim, he did not drown, but drifted a long way before a fisherman hauled him into his boat, saying, "Foolish man, the current is strong. What are you trying to do?" Mojud said, "I don't really know." "You are mad," said the fisherman, "but I will take you into my hut, and we shall see what can be done for you." When he discovered that Mojud was well spoken, he learned from him how to read and write. In exchange, Mojud was given food and helped the fisherman with his work. After a few months, Khidra again appeared, this time at the foot of Mojud's bed, and said, "Get up now and leave this fisherman. You will be provided for." Mojud immediately quit the hut, dressed as a fisherman, and wandered about until he came to a highway. As dawn was breaking, he saw a farmer on a donkey on his way to the market. "Do you seek work?" asked the farmer, "because I need a man to help me bring back some purchases." Mojud followed him. He worked for the farmer for nearly 2 years, by which time he had learned a great deal about agriculture but little else. One afternoon, when he was baling wool, Khidra appeared to him and said, "Leave that work, walk to the city of Mosul and use your savings to become a skin merchant." Mojud obeyed. In Mosul, he became known as a skin merchant, never seeing Khidra while he plied his trade for 3 years. He had saved quite a large sum of money and was thinking of buying a house when Khidra appeared and said, "Give me your money, walk out of this town as far as the distant Samarkand and work for a grocer there." Mojud did so. Presently, he began to show undoubted signs of illumination. He healed the sick, served his fellow men in the shop during his spare time, and his knowledge of the mysteries became deeper and deeper. Clerics, philosophers, and others visited him and asked, "Under whom did you study?" "It is difficult to say," said Mojud. His disciples asked, "How did you start your career?" He said, "As a small official." "And you gave it up to devote yourself to self-mortification?" "No, I just gave it up." They did not understand him. People approached him to write the story of his life. "What have you been in your life?" they asked. Mojud said, I jumped into a river, became a fisherman, then walked out of his hut in the middle of the night. After that, I became a farm hand. While I was baling wool, I changed and went to Mosul, where I became a skin merchant. I saved some money but gave it away. Then I walked to Samarkand, where I worked for a grocer, and this is where I am now. But this inexplicable behavior throws no light upon your strange gifts and wonderful examples, said the biographers. That is so, said Mojud. So the biographers constructed for Mojud a wonderful and exciting story. Because all saints must have their story, and the story must be in accordance with the appetite of the listener, not with the realities of life. And this is the real life of one of the greatest Sufis. Mojud became a great Sufi saint, and much credit goes to his madness, which enabled him to take all kinds of risks. Whenever Khidra used to appear and order, Mojud used to follow the orders. He never thought before jumping into the unknown, and this courage led him to many spiritual experiences. Courage comes from madness. When you are madly in love with your country, you will not hesitate to fight till the very end of your life. That is how madness is necessary. Only a madman can do that which nobody else can do, and that is why only a madman can achieve that which nobody else can achieve. Avatar Meher Baba was fond of mad people. He always was in search of mad people because he was aware that a madman is already out of his mind, but unconsciously. He just needs proper guidance, and then he can come out of his mind, but this time consciously. Your so-called sane intellectual people are too much caught up in their minds. They will take more time, maybe millions of births, to experience the beyond than a mere madman. Retrograde Mercury is like a deadly knife. If put to good use, it can create the greatest wonders that the world had ever known. And if put to bad use, then they can destroy the whole world. Basically, it is a power-packed horse that needs a good jockey. This jockey is your awareness. So depending on the level of awareness that a soul had brought from his or her previous birth, this retrograde Mercury will fructify. Retrograde Mercury in the 6th house, 8th house or 12th house is not bad. However, if retrograde Mercury associates with the 6th, 8th or 12th house lord, then it is a problem. Then such a person may not have the capability to think positively. So it all depends on the associations that such a retrograde Mercury enjoys in your birth chart. Bad house lords associations will lead to bad results, and good house lord associations will lead to good results. One of the best outcomes is when Jupiter casts its 5th, 7th or 9th drishti on the retrograde Mercury. Then such a retrograde Mercury gets the support of the master, and then the native does extremely well in his or her life. The association of Jupiter with Mercury is a good sign, signify a well-balanced, sorted person. However, the worst outcome is when retrograde Mercury associates with Rahu. Such a person is toxic, especially if his horoscope is poor in quality. Retrograde Mercury with Ketu is also a very unfortunate sign. Retrograde Mercury is not in its normal state, and on top of that, Ketu's association nullifies the good qualities of Mercury. Logic, intellectuality, and overall communication abilities suffer because of such an association. Association of retrograde Mercury with Sun is also a bad sign since Mercury goes in a combust state, Asta, and the native is forced to face certain unwanted situations related to money, legal disputes, and misunderstandings in relationships. Venus with retrograde Mercury is a good sign provided Venus is not afflicted in the birth chart. Such a person is creative and can create something unique for which he or she will be remembered by the society. Many actors and actresses have retrograde Mercury. Julia Roberts is one fine example of retrograde Mercury. Overall, retrograde Mercury is a sign of confusion, complexities, and complications. However, it also gives the capabilities to deal with complex situations, high end architectural designs, great strategies, and mainly provides the tendency to think out of the box, which leads to many new ideas, inventions, and unique creations. And so it all depends on where and in what state retrograde Mercury is. If the state is good, the outcome is good, and if the state is bad, the outcome is bad. A sharp knife can help you cut vegetables, while the same sharp knife can become a weapon to harm innocent men and women. So it all depends on who uses the knife. This who is consciousness, awareness. If the person is born with a certain higher level of awareness, then he can do wonders with such a sharp knife, that is retrograde Mercury. Otherwise, a cheap, abusive, ignorant person will simply cause much harm to society with such a retrograde Mercury. If a plain stone, a very simple stone, falls in a temple or a shrine, then even that simple stone someday becomes a holy stone. And if the simple stone falls in the graveyard, then someday it is used while digging the graveyard. So it all depends on where the stone falls. Similarly, it all depends on what kind of horoscope retrograde Mercury falls. And this all is based on your past karma. The more you hurt others by your comments and your actions, the more you will fall into the dark spaces of the graveyard. And the more you bring smiles on others' faces, the more you will be destined to fall into a beautiful divine temple. Decide which way you want to go. What you choose is what you become. Love to all my listeners and close followers. Remember to meditate and chant every day. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Jai Sri Ganesha. Jai Guru. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha.